FDFA has faced many challenges over the course of the last year and a half. The COVID-19 pandemic meant that borders closed, traffic stopped, and our business were shut down.
This Saturday night, the window to get Canadians home is closing.
The President, as you all are aware, also announced today that by mutual consent, the northern border to Canada will be closed to non-essential travel.
The government has done a good job of putting these programs together, but when it comes to actually administering them for our stores, we find that we don't actually qualify for them because we're so different and because we're so niche, so that when it comes to administering them, we get caught up in technicalities.
But even with an open border, there are provincial public health orders that require a 14-day quarantine period, which will supersede any opening of the international border. It's looking like international travel is going to be impacted definitely through to the end of the year and likely for a couple of years to come.
But we have been getting mixed messages with the rent program. And now we've just learned that we don't qualify for the secret program. So what we're asking for is for them to get this aligned, and that they need to do it quickly because the stores are on the brink.
In the CEBA loan. But the interesting thing is that the federal government in the last budget announced $500 million that's to go towards the hardest hit, the tourism industry in general. And of course, we are, the blunt end of the stick here.
We are here today in Ottawa at the iconic Chateau Laurier to launch this coalition.
These are businesses that share one thing in common. We're in the people business, in the business of bringing people together.
We're down 90 to 95% in revenue, some of them 100%. We're not asking for a handout, we're asking to survive.
One of the government's pinnacle support programs is the wage subsidy. And what was announced in their latest round of changes is that businesses are going to be weaned off this program starting right now in September. And why that's a problem is because you have businesses out there that are allowed to recover, and you have businesses that are not allowed to recover. And we are in that second, what we believe to be a special category.
We're now getting to the point where they're still closed, they're not recovering, and the program is winding down. So what I'd really like to get across is how different we are, and the urgency that we get, the urgency that's there. I mean, I've had calls from store owners who are putting their wages on their credit card just to get through, and that's just how urgent it is.
In addition to extending the wage subsidy, the government will take further steps to bridge vulnerable businesses to the other side of the pandemic. One way the government will create these jobs is by extending the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy right through the next summer, and by introducing further support for industries that have been the hardest hit.
We have been very supportive of government actions to protect the health of Canadians, but our industry is now sustaining year-over-year decreases of over 94%. We have two solutions which we ask you to support and to champion. First, in Budget 2021, a $500 million tourism relief fund was announced. We are asking your support to channel some of this fund into a duty-free relief fund to help us stay alive and to recover, to allow grants of up to $200,000 per store, with a total maximum budget allocation of $6.6 million.
Secondly, member of the committee, we need an export designation to recover long term. We are asking this committee and the federal government to create a special overarching legislation that will allow our store to come out of this crisis with an export sector designation, with all the rights and privileges to facilitate our recovery post-crisis.
FDFA, Frontier Duty Free Association, represents the 33 land border duty-free stores across Canada. We've been absolutely devastated by the border closure. We're 100% dependent on the border being open, as we are an export business. Everything in our stores needs to exit into the U.S. So as long as that border is not open, we're not in business. We're asking the government to reopen the border as soon as possible and get our businesses back to work.
And if you were to ask me if I see the light in the duty-free program, I'm not sure how I would answer that.
It's been nearly 15 months since any customer has set foot in Chris Foster's duty-free store. Like the 32 others along the Canada-US land border, this one north of Niagara Falls has been family-run for decades.
We're down over 92% in total sales. Our leading category normally would be liquor and beverage alcohol sales. They're down over 98%.
We're 100% dependent on the border being open, as we are an export business. Everything in our stores needs to exit into the U.S. So as long as that border is not open, we're not in business.
But I also, on a higher level, want to thank your government for the incredible work on vaccination. I mean, yesterday, Minister Anand shared the stat during the press conference that 70% of eligible Canadians are vaccinated. That's an incredible accomplishment. You think of where we were last year without even a vaccination. And I think that's part of the story here. We have to be able to accept the success of vaccination and the things that provides for us on both sides of the border.
Follow the facts, follow the data. And the science and the facts and the data all point to the same thing. We now have a very powerful medicine against this disease. And if you are fully vaccinated, whether it's 7% of your population or 45% of your population, you pose a very small risk of getting COVID or giving COVID. And therefore, those individuals who have been fully vaccinated on both sides of the border should be able to cross that border.
We operate quietly at the border. We try to provide our services to the general public and provide a good assortment of products to sell at a good savings. But if you're not traveling to the U.S., I don't think duty-free shops are at top of mind. So
have proof of immunity on both sides, and we can come to these agreements. We can immediately reopen the border for fully vaccinated individuals for the sake of family reunification, for the sake of cross-border commerce and the Canadian businesses and American businesses that depend on that kind of travel.
We need extra support. We need those measures to continue into the new year, into 2022, and we need additional relief measures. Ultimately, we need that border open.
Member for Banff Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, a one-dose summer means a locked-down summer for the tourism industry. Canada's closed borders mean that tourism businesses continue to suffer. This industry was the first impacted and will be the last to recover. Yet there's been radio silence from this federal government. What is the benchmark to restart travel? 70% fully vaccinated? 80%? cases under a certain number. It has to be something. And tourism businesses need time to be able to be ready to safely reopen for visitors. So when are the Liberals going to table a plan with benchmarks for a safe reopening?
We were happy to do our part to keep Canadians safe, and we are now asking for the government to do its part to help us survive and have a viable future. This, to us, seems like a matter of fairness.
Quel commerce peut être fermé pendant 16 mois et penser survivre sans support additionnel?
Although it's good that Americans will be coming in and spending their money here, and what goes up must also go down, it's really just a trickle and a crack in the opening for us. So it's still we still have a ways to go to recovery.
In a year lockdown, Canada is opening its border back up to international travelers, starting with the U.S.
On August 9th, we will be opening non-essential travel to Americans who've been fully vaccinated for at least 14 days. This is in recognition of our unique bond.
That means no 2-week quarantine, but travelers will be required to show proof they've received Health Canada approved vaccines and must test negative pre-departure, but will no longer face a test upon arrival in Canada unless randomly selected.
And then we're also aware, as we committed to during the campaign, that while some sectors of the economy are recovering very robustly, and that is great, there are some sectors that have been and continue to be particularly hard hit. Tourism and events are some examples. And so we are working on ways to ensure that support is there for them. So we'll have more to say about the specifics.
And we're asking for President Biden to pay attention to this again. There's cost to this. There's families who are losing their businesses because of this. Border towns are suffering because of this. So it has to be a priority. It matters to Canadians that we can't travel into the United States.
Listen, we're expecting an improvement, obviously, but we still have a long road to recovery. This isn't going to be a floodgate opening and suddenly we're back to pre-pandemic sales. We still have a long road ahead of us. We've missed 2 high seasons. We've missed 2 summers now. We've missed 2 falls. We have a long way to go. So we're very appreciative of the supports that the government has provided to us up to this point, but we still depend on them going forward. So we are looking forward to the Liberal government implementing and living up to their promise on the campaign to have these supports for the hardest hit businesses, because we certainly are among them.
We've come a long way since the beginning of the pandemic. Borders are open again and travel has started up. But the fight isn't over yet, and the FDFA will keep fighting for you.